Welcome to the Altitude Show. I'm your host, Dave Brinker. What's up, everybody? Today I have Randy Newberg on the show. He's been a buddy of mine for years. He's a conservationist, a hunter, a financial wizard, and just a damn good human. He's full of wisdom. We've shared some adventures together, including one of my most embarrassing moments on the camera. You can get on YouTube after the show and search Dave Brinker, Randy Newberg, Montana archery hunt, and you will see me miss a bullet like 13 yards. We talk about that, of course. We talk about the difference between living and just breathing. We talk about managing money. We talk about how retirement is overrated as hell. And we talk about setting your hunting goals and much more. It's a really, really good conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it. Cheers. The Altitude Show is brought to you by Peaks Equipment, the world's leading technical, hard goods, and accessories brand for backcountry enthusiasts. From trekking poles to headlamps to best-in-class gaiters, Peaks delivers a system of products that work to achieve optimal performance in the harshest conditions. Don't suffer on your hunting adventures. Peaks enables you to thrive on the mountain when everyone else is going home. Visit peaksequipment.com and use code ALTITUDE for 10% off today. That's ALTITUDE for 10% off on peaksequipment.com. Outdoor Class is the new source of premium outdoor education from trusted and knowledgeable experts. For hunters committed to improving their skills, Outdoor Class is the only subscription-based e-learning platform that provides unlimited access to video lessons from the world's most respected experts. Learn from industry leaders like Corey Jacobson, Randy Newberg, Remy Warren, and other experts across all the topics that affect you as a hunter. Make sure to follow Outdoor Class Official on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and take your game to the next level by going to outdoorclass.com. You can use code ALTITUDE at checkout for 20% off. That is ALTITUDE at checkout for 20% off at outdoorclass.com. Randy, how you doing today, buddy?
I am so good, David. I'd have to be you to be any better.
You always say that, and I always got to stop and think. Now, today, I have to say I'm doing very well, and I had not to be a Debbie Downer, but I had a friend whose cousin died yesterday of a brain aneurysm.
Oh.
In their mid-30s, and when you hear stories like that, you do taste your coffee a little bit more in the morning.
Yeah. I think right now all you got to do is turn the news on and watch what's going on in other places to realize how lucky we are.
Yeah, and just for reference, right now is March. What are we, Randy? March 18th. Yeah, so we got a whole mess, right? We got coronavirus still spreading all over the world. We got Ukraine and Russia. We got inflation. We got lots of stuff. But Randy, you tell me this, because you're a much older gentleman than I am, and not that you're old. I'm not saying that you're old.
I'm old, David. You can say that. We're friends.
Doesn't every generation have, like, because sometimes you're like, God, this is like terrible time in the world. You know, it's a very dark time, and I'm not saying it's not, but I was thinking the other day that, I mean, I think every generation kind of has these, right? Or is it ever all light in the world? I don't think so.
I think the world goes in this, spurts and fits, and there's some places where every day is a tough day. I think times like this, or other dark periods, it causes us as Americans to realize just how lucky and how blessed we are. We don't wake up in the morning wondering if we're going to have clean water to drink, or wondering if our kids get to go to school this year. What's a relative dark period for us? Most of the world would give anything for that to be their darker days.
It's so hard, though, to realize that, when I feel like, especially my generation, Randy, because really, my life really started in the early, I was born in 1980, but I lived through the 90s and the early 2000s, which some would argue was like some of the best times America's ever had.
Yep.
And I just feel like we're spoiled brats. I know that I wake up sometimes, I'm having a bad day because I stubbed my toe or my coffee didn't taste quite right, or, my podcast studio lighting wasn't quite right. Well, it's like,
Yeah.
shut up, David. Like,
Yeah.
you could be worrying about being bombed right now. Like, we're one of the few countries on earth where you can actually go to sleep at night, hopefully forever, but especially right now, and not worry about a bomb dropping on you. That's nice.
Yeah.
Clean water, sanitation. Like,
Yeah.
we just take all that for granted.
Yeah. And so for me, I think back through my life. I was born in 1964, and I started watching the news when the Vietnam War was winding down. I think in my, however long a view you want to see of America, in my lifetime, the low point was to see absolute. I mean, we talk about divisiveness in our politics. At that time, the divisiveness in our society was at an extreme. It took years for that to mend, and then I
That
look
was
back.
kind of because I'm not a history buff, obviously, but the Vietnam War was between the people that wanted the war and the people that didn't want the war.
Yeah,
The whole hippie
yeah,
movement, is that kind of where
yeah.
that came from?
That the anti-war protest movement, and my mom's got 6 brothers, and 3 of them served in the military during that time. And when they came home, they did not get the warm welcome that every veteran, every armed
Mm.
service member deserves, that respect and that warm welcome, and they didn't get that, and it created a lot of bitterness. The draft had been in effect at that point, and a lot of folks who didn't want to get drafted, who couldn't figure out a way to get a deferral or some other type of exemption, went to Canada, and then Jimmy Carter let them all back in to the these were still raw emotions at the time. And so when President Carter let they call them the draft dodgers back in, that was a pretty hard pill for some of those guys to swallow, or family members who had lost, sons and brothers and others over in Vietnam. So I look at that period, and that was pretty dark economically in my life. The darkest period was obviously the late 70s, early 80s. Today, people, I saw this week, mortgage rates might bounce above 4%. Excuse me, but in 1979, interest rates were 18%.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How,
So
how did you buy a house? How could you buy a
you
house?
didn't. Well,
Right.
you did buy a house, but houses weren't worth anything because
True.
so much of the purchase price, this is one thing I think Americans today take for granted, is this huge real estate boom we're experiencing. It's not because properties are worth more. It's because the average American's portion of their payment that goes towards interest is very low, allowing more of it to go towards principal, and therefore they can have a larger mortgage.
Mm.
Well, that's gonna, history tells me, and maybe I'm wrong, that's gonna flip and turn on its head at some point.
What happens? I
But
mean, you're a financial guy. What happens when that happens?
you don't want to be holding a mortgage from a property that you bought at the peak of the cycle. I can tell you that. I mean, it's what happens, and
Yeah.
history has always shown this, that we end up to have a depressed, at least a reduction,
Right.
a correction, some would call it, in what real estate values are, because interest rates are higher. That's just a direct correlation. So.
So if you're a person like, I didn't buy at the peak, but I bought in the upswing, and I think a lot of us did, since we're, anybody my age at least.
Yeah.
But even if you pay off your house
Mm-hmm.
and the market does what you described, you're still screwed, because the whole point of it is your house isn't worth as nearly as much as what you paid it off. So that's what always confuses me, is like, okay,
It's all relative.
right? Like, what are you supposed to do? Just rent? Is renting a better strategy?
No, I'm not saying that. For me, I don't look at my house as an investment. So
Oh,
I paid off my house 7 years ago. Uh, to me, it's a roof over my head. It's my sanctuary. It's the place nobody's ever going to boot me out of.
Mm-hmm.
It's and the other part of that, David, is once your house is paid off, your largest cost of your budget of your life is now gone.
Right.
And I could almost live on the money of collecting tin can or aluminum cans now that I don't have a mortgage. I mean,
Right.
it's crazy what that does. And so, if the real estate goes down, guess what? Everybody's real estate is going down. My house value goes down. It's all relative to me. And if I was treating that as my investment, which I think some people do with their personal residence, then you've got some issues. And probably where the biggest risks come from is you have people that have to move, or employment forces them to have to move, or their job is lost and they have to move, or they got to go take care of a sick family member and they have to move. Well, if you bought at the peak and you put 20% down, you're like, okay, I'm in good shape. But what if the market corrects by 40%? Now you're
Right.
upside down by 20% and you got to move. That's a problem.
That's a big problem.
Yeah. So that's what happened in 2008, 2009, 2010, right? And
Right.
you and I, none of the people listening are too big to fail like the Wall Street boys were in 2008.
Right. Now you have a past, for those that don't know, in the financial world. You are a CPA still. You're still licensed, I assume.
Yeah, I'm not a very good one. I have been for 35 years, but a year and a half ago, the firm that I and my partner had founded, I stepped away from that. The partners are still running it, but yeah, I got to see an awful lot of interesting things go on.
If I know much about hunters, and there's a lot of hunters listening to this podcast, even though I hope there's a lot of people that aren't hunters listening to it too, because I have stuff I want to talk to them about as well. But if there's one thing I know about hunters, is we're not great at money management. I mean, I just walked through my garage, Randy, to come out here to my studio, and I looked around and I'm like, what do I do with all this gear? I mean, I could probably get away with using like a 6-piece clothing system, one rifle, one bow. But here I have a stack of Yeti coolers. I got crap all over the floor. I have more ammo than I'm ever going to need unless, World War VII happens. Like, what's your... How do you deal with somebody like me? If I'm a client coming in back in the day when you're doing that, like, what's your number one advice for people my age with money management? What should we be doing with our money?
The thing that I think most young people, even people, if you want to, when I say my age, right, 57, they don't have a budget. So they have no idea where the hell their money's going to. Well, if you don't know where your money's going, how do you know how to manage it? And I'm sure people are like, well, that's just for accountants. Well, the most successful people I see financially, even if they have modest incomes, say they're, a teacher and, an excavator, they're not making a fortune of money. But those people who have a budget, stick to it, and live within their means, somehow they come out the other end very comfortable. And then you might have the dentist who's, just rolling in the bucks, or the doctor or the attorney, and they blow it faster than they can make it.
Right.
And they get to a certain age where all their friends are retired and they're looking around like, where'd my money go? Well, they never had a budget. That's like, I know that's like, but even lower than finances 101.
It's hard to execute on, though. I've tried it, and
Really?
well, it's not. In reality, no, it's not hard. But what I do is I overcomplicate it, and I'll start building this I'll spend 8 hours on a spreadsheet that's so complicated that you're never going to update it, you're never going to track it, and it's one thing. That's my wife always. It's like, it's one thing to build a budget, but you got to track it, right?
Right. So here's how you do that. It's for $99. You go buy a piece of software called Quicken, and it's done.
Yeah.
Every month when you reconcile your bank account, Quicken makes you input every check and categorize it to one of your budget categories.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I,
that's not a good excuse. So
no, I'd say
I was hoping I'd come up with a better excuse before this show to make me feel better.
I'd say that if I had to give one other thing, it's that people end up in way too much debt. And when I got out of college, I had to pay for my own college. My parents didn't have any money. So I ended up with college debt. I ended up with vehicle debt because I didn't have a vehicle. I needed a reliable vehicle to get to work. And so I ended up with debt that I coach other people not to do, but I didn't have any choice at the time. But I call it essential debt and non-essential debt. Do you really need those two snowmobiles? Do you need the timeshare? No. If you're doing any of those kind of things with debt, you are working for the bank. You are
Mm,
working for the finance company.
mm.
And as an old boy used to tell me, interest never sleeps, but you do. So,
What's the difference
uh,
between good debt and bad debt, though? Because there's a lot of people that argue that debt's one of the most beautiful things ever created.
right. Yeah. I mean, good debt is the type of debt that you take on because you're going to grow your business, or you need to take on debt usually to have a roof over your head. But
Hmm.
putting a roof over your head is a way to reach the long term financial stability of not having a mortgage payment and having your housing cost fixed beyond just, now that my house is paid off, is just my utilities, property taxes, and insurance. Repairs a little bit. So having a mortgage is good debt. Now, having second mortgages and third mortgages and home equity lines of credit, not really. I mean,
No, even if you're
I,
buying,
I
even if you're buying short-term rentals that cash flow, and like, what's your opinion
well,
on that? Like, what's your opinion on being over leveraged?
there's a lot of people who've been over leveraged who had to start over. I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it, David, there's a lot of luck that comes into some of this stuff, timing and good luck. And I've been blessed beyond what I ever deserve in in how my business investments have turned out. But I'd like to say it's all hard work. And my wife and I and all of our employees, we all worked hard. But there's also some good timing, or by not having bad luck. Yeah, I call that good luck. Anything other than bad luck is good luck. So I'll give you the example. So I go to start my own CPA firm. Uh, I spend all of my savings, and I did take this as a time where maybe you do take a second mortgage on your house. I had to put my house up as collateral to outfit this CPA firm with computers and printers and copiers and
Right.
all the other stuff. So that was a type of debt that I had to take on. Now, what if something would have happened to me where I couldn't work during that period?
Mm.
What if all of a sudden something happened to my wife where I would have had to been a caregiver? And I'm just using these as random examples of what
They
could have been
happen though,
bad
right?
luck when it was the most leveraged point in my life.
Hmm.
And I lucked out. I got through that tube, and as quick as I could, I started paying off those debts. But it doesn't always happen that way. So, being leveraged, if you don't run into a bump in the road, you look like a genius. But someone else might take the same exact risks at the same exact time, but they run into some big bumps in the road, or a complete calamity in life. They got cancer, or they end up with a special needs child, or just life gets in the way.
Hmm.
And then people will be like, well, why'd you leverage yourself so bad, blah blah blah. It's like, well, sometimes that's just bad luck. So if
Yeah.
if you leverage yourself for stuff that makes sense, I don't, it's hard to criticize that because you're trying to make a go of it. But if you're just stacking on personal debt, consumer debt, you're just asking for someone to come and kick the ladder out from underneath you.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And that's kind of what I've been trying to learn, because I've been the last, especially the last several years since I went out on my own. I mean, whether you want to or not, if you go out on your own, you got to learn finance. And I was more of a marketing and brand guy that had a good base sense with business. I have a business degree, but you kind of learn by fire when you got to like start your own QuickBooks account to run your business out of. And I still
Yep.
am terrible at it. That's why I now have a bookkeeper and a CPA and all these people around me that can kind of pick up my pieces. But
Yeah.
I've had one of the things I've been really trying to put my head around, Randy, because and I'm genuinely trying to figure this out in this day that we're in right now, because I'm getting to the point in my life where I'm hoping I'm getting closer and closer to be able to have, you know, more reserve power to make investments. Right now, I invest everything into business, like pretty much. I mean, obviously, I have my nut, which is my family, and all the things you do with family, like a vacation,
Right.
mortgage, all that stuff. But besides that, extra money goes into building businesses. And to
Right.
me, I've seen that return, and I know that's worth it. And I'm willing to
Hmm.
risk that. But
Yep.
as I get older, and my generation, we're in our 40s. This is kind of usually when you start developing some wealth, hopefully.
Yep.
And you have decisions to make. Do I want to buy a long term rental? Do I want to buy an Airbnb? Do I want to just keep putting more in the stock market, or do I want to invest in startups? Like there's all these decisions, buy
Hmm.
property, whatever it might be. They're hard to make, and I have friends that are totally over leveraged. I have friends that save every dime and the money just sits in a savings account and doesn't earn anything.
Yeah.
And I have everything in between. So I'm always curious to ask people like you, what you would do if you were us.
Yeah. I always tell people the best investment you can make is in yourself.
Mm.
Whether that's your own business, your own ideas. Invest in yourself first. Um, the returns you will get
And
on
that
an
doesn't mean six
investment.
more snowmobiles.
No, it does not. I mean, if you have a well thought out idea of how you could go build your own business, or
Right.
you understand some relationships of cause and effect of why this is a good time to do X when
Hmm.
everyone else might be doing Y, invest in your ideas first. And once you do those, then and if you have any financial advisors listening to this, they're going to say there's a reason he's an accountant. Uh, I, I've just always been a little bit hesitant to hand my money off and put it in the market.
Oh,
I mean, I've been proven to be wrong. Don't get me wrong. But I see things like 2008 come along where AIG shows up at Congress and says, "Hey, we need, whatever $40 billion tomorrow, or we're going to go bankrupt." Uh, this is again just a part of me that I grew up where everyone was self-employed. I had my own lawn mowing service when I was about 10. I had a bait shop. I've been a self-employed, invest in myself person since I was a kid, and I just I'm more sympathetic towards that small business owner than I ever will be to the, I call it industrial investments,
mm.
known as Wall Street and similar things. And
Did you
so,
always did you always
uh,
have were you always diversified though? Did you always have a little bit in there?
oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I had enough in the market in 2000 when the tech stocks crashed, and enough in 2008 when that went to hell. That yeah, I felt a lot of pain. Uh,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying I don't ever have any in the market, but
Right.
if there's something out there that I'm going to allocate a large portion of my net worth to, it's going to be something I'm in control of, something that is my idea or my destiny.
I love that.
So,
I love that. I mean, obviously, it's what's that old saying? It's anyways. I can't think of it right now, but it's about investing in yourself and how if you, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you already trust yourself enough.
mhm,
I talked to Will Primos the other day, Randy, for a long time
yeah,
about this, and something that I knew about him was well, first of all, he didn't draw a paycheck from Primos until it was over 10 years in. Luckily, he had a wife that supported him that made enough money to cover their bills.
Yeah.
But they didn't even buy a house until after he sold the company. He rented a condo. He literally decided not to have kids. Like, but he took every dime he made in Primos and just reinvested it. And that seems to be a similar story I hear from a lot of successful entrepreneurs and founders.
Yeah.
But it's also really scary, right? It's much you feel this weird sense of security sticking money in your savings account. If you do have extra money, it's hard to save money. So when you finally can save like $2,000, you like look at it in there, you're like, oh yeah, look at that. It's just sitting there. We're so secure right now, but maybe you could turn that $2,000 in your own company into $10,000 or $20,000, and then keep doing that. Pretty soon, you can save too while also growing your business. Would you agree that a lot of the businesses you've seen, or at least a good portion of the ones you've seen fail, one of the reasons they fail is, or at least go stagnant, is they stop doing that and they start paying themselves too much?
Well, they start paying themselves too much, or they quit investing in themselves and their ideas. It just, in business, it's like everything else. As quick as you stop walking forward, you're in effect walking backwards. And so, how you run that business, all that is, people can run a business into the ground, but I see that so seldom in the small business world and in the successful business world. I think if there's one thing that small business owners have to learn to do, it's do your own balance sheet. In other words, what are your assets, what are your liabilities, and how much equity do you have in this business? Because that equity is really the equivalent of what you would compare to what you put into the stock market. Okay. Just about every small business client, by small business, I'm talking any business with sales of under 50 million. And every one of those who go through that exercise realize their rate of return on that internal capital that they have, their own equity, often is over 100%.
Oh, it's insane. It's a really good point. No one ever talks about this. I was thinking about this the other day, Rain. I'm so glad you brought this up, because I had a meeting with my financial advisor and she made me do this because, in my own companies, and I hadn't thought about it at all because my companies are really young and like, it's like, I mean, you technically have equity, but also it could be gone tomorrow. So you don't really, at least I don't think about it because I think it's dangerous. But, when you start thinking about that, it's like, man, when you look at the number that you come back with, you're like, geez, I mean, I'd much rather do that than put it over here in this CD for whatever measly pennies they're going to give me on that. Because I trust myself and I believe in my vision. And so I'm willing to take that risk.
Yeah. So that's a risk I don't want to say you have full control over, but you have a lot more control over that risk than the inherent risk that you're taking with market cycles and everything else. So again, I know you've got financial advisors listening to this saying this guy is off his rock, man. But
they can come on and tell me their side of the story.
I say this, in my CPA world, I had about 500 small business clients, and they were very successful people. And the ones that weren't made for being entrepreneurs pretty quickly get weeded out because they're not willing to take that extra hour to build a balance sheet and compare that to where they're at today versus where they were a month ago or a year ago and do this kind of analysis. But a lot of them do. And those people are super, super successful. Every one of them have invested in themselves and said, I want to invest in places where I can control the risk to whatever degree you can. And I'm going to keep reinvesting. And, pretty soon they start with 3 employees, and the next thing you know, they got 150 employees. Then they look back, and most of them aren't driven by the money part of it. It's they have a dream, they have an idea, and they say, I'm going to go make this work.
I think it's like a passion for making things and being creative and having an idea and seeing it come to life is like, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful things in this entire world. More than any $2,000 in your bank. I mean, don't get me wrong, folks. I I have I'm just like everybody else to where like buying a cup of coffee not very long ago I had to watch. Like money is you have to make a certain amount of money to be
Mhm.
comfortable and happy. But at the same time, if you do have the ability to create things that are yours, I'm not talking about
Yep.
creating stuff when you're working for other people is fun too. But I'm
Mhm.
talking about creating stuff that's yours. Randy, you started your side hustle in while you were still at your CPA firm.
Yep.
And how old were you when you started the side hustle?
This media company, I was, let's see, 44.
44 years old. And I
Yeah.
bet you there's 44-year-olds on here that are like, oh, I'm too old to start over.
Yeah.
I'm already in. I might as well just get to retirement, which is 26 years away or 25 years away, which that's an insane statement. You have a lot of time. So you
Yep.
started your side hustle. How did that work? And like, was that nerve wracking and sleepless, or were you pretty? I mean,
Mhm.
were you pretty comfortable with the whole idea?
No, it's very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I said that here's something that's important to me. So we only had one kid, which a lot of people say, well, you're really not a parent if you only have one. But when he went off to college, I it there's certain markers in life, right, where you kind of do an assessment about what do you want out of life. Are you fulfilled? What's this dream you've always had that you've been holding back on? And I said, all right, now's the time. The responsible Randy is kind of taking care of all of his life obligations. And so I started this, and I get up every day. Now it's what I do full time. Other than I dabble a little bit in the CPA world enough as my wife says, have money for bait and bullets. But you know, I was had the benefit of enough business experience to know that you don't just quit one and jump into the other. That that's a risk you shouldn't take. So I worked full time at two jobs for 10 years in my 40s and early 50s. And most people
Jeez.
are like, "What?" So, yeah.
How does that work hourly? Like, did
Well,
you go home at night or did you just become more efficient at your CPA stuff and hire people and
yeah. I mean, I hired a lot of people at the CPA firm, took on partners, but and then I would compress my workload into tax season as much as I possibly could. And then after that, this enterprise is what I did for the other 8.5 months of the year. Um,
mm-hmm.
so that, and I just, I, my wife said that she never wanted this to be our livelihood. Uh, and by that, she meant, and she said, why? She said, look, I know how much you love hunting. I know how committed you are to conservation. And if that becomes our livelihood, the stress of making that pay our bills, you'll grow to hate it. So
Mm,
these platforms took a long time to build because I went at it slower. I didn't
mm-hmm.
just say, you know what, I'm all done at the CPA firm tomorrow. I'm going to turn on a bunch of cameras and start doing this. So, but it was a dream that I had,
What was the
and
dream? Was the dream to just figure out a way to make money hunting because you love hunting, or was the dream to create a media company? Like, what was it?
it's so convoluted, David. The why written on every whiteboard here at the office is to promote self-guided public land hunting and create advocates for that cause. So that's what I really wanted to do. My wife shares my passion for conserving wild places and wild things. All of our family time is in the outdoors. She loves to fish. Uh, uh, it's just what we did. And so the idea was to find a way to leverage all the time and energy me and my wife were putting into conservation and maybe make it more effective and more powerful. So I still haven't figured out how to quote unquote make money at it. Uh, but that's a choice I make. And in this business, and this is the luxury of now, going back to some of those basic things of not being in debt and having other investments and everything else, is I can make the decisions of how I want to run this business. So we have 5 silos of content that we produce. Half of it falls in the first silo of entertainment and inspiration. In other words, we go out on these adventure hunts and people see it. We make money at that. So if I wanted to just stop there, yes, I'd be making money at this. But what really drives me and what fills the why of why I started this are conservation, advocacy, education, and information. So there's 4 other silos of content. And those take 50% of the resources and only generate 10% of the revenue. Well, how dumb am I to allocate 50% of my resources? I've got 10 employees running around here. I got 5 employees who pretty much work full time on something that only generates 10% of our revenue. Well, as long as the entertainment side makes money, I'm going to keep dumping it into that side because that's what gets me up in the morning. That's what excites me. And people look at me like, you're either full of crap, Newberg, or you're an idiot. And maybe I am an idiot, but I hope I'm not full of BS. But I try to explain to them the greatest blessing in the world, what true freedom represents, is to get up in the morning and do with your time what you damn well please. You're not beholden to anyone or anything because of a mortgage or because you borrowed money here or because you've not saved for this or whatever. And some people work all their lives to get to the point where they want to go down and spend all their time and all their savings sitting on the beach in Florida because they can't. And some people get to the point in their life to say, I want to go live near the grandkids in Seattle. That's what I'm going to spend all my time and money on because they can. And for me, I'm blessed to have a wife who says, if you want to blow all your time and some of our money on doing what you find so fulfilling, hey, knock yourself out. So I do it that way because I can. And I mean, I say, what a country, right? Where the hell else in this world could somebody with my very modest upbringing end up having a life as blessed as mine is?
Yeah.
I can't imagine it being any better.
Time seems to be what we're all fighting for. And one of my goals for my life, I'm still a little ways from this, but I'm really blessed right now already, is I want liberty, total 100% liberty over my time. Other than, so I can, if I want to take my family somewhere for a week, I'm not asking anybody's permission. My businesses are running efficiently enough to where it's not detrimental, financially, because I value time and experiences. I also value money, but you have to have that in place before you can have sort of, financial freedom, whatever you want to call it, freedom. Because we live in a place you can actually build a life like that, which is pretty cool, right? So I totally agree with you that is, in my opinion, that's gold. That's like the end of the rainbow. That's the pot of gold, is if you can figure that. And it seems to be, for those out there that are looking for that side hustle, like they're dreaming about doing whatever they're dreaming about doing. That's one of the things they want. I just want to be able to do this, and I don't want anybody, I just want the freedom to do that. They want freedom and liberty. It's something. I wrote on my Instagram the other day because it was something I was thinking about. It's like, it's just like any other freedom though. Like, you got to fight for it. Like, no one's gonna say, here, Randy, Mr. Randy CPA, you've done a good enough job. Why don't you just go hunt around the country on public land and make videos? Do you just go do that for yourself? You got to be like, you got to fight for it, because people will take, they want you to work for them. They don't want you, so have you had to fight a lot for what you want? And probably people think you're crazy and you're stupid and you're not going to make it happen.
No. Yeah, I mean, I the list is so long, David, of things like that. I think about how much money I could have invested in Bozeman real estate if I hadn't invested in this. At when the economy was just in the tank and you could buy property here so cheap in 2008, 9, and 10, I was dumping tens of thousands. Well, I don't even want to tell you what the total became, but I'm like, man, if I would have just put that into real estate, what a knothead, Randy. I drive a 2006 Honda Pilot with almost 200,000 miles on it. I don't need a new vehicle every day or every year. I live in a house that's 18 years old. I have a boat, yeah, but guess what? It's 20 years old, and I take good care of it. And so I, I, I've had the blessing of some really, and this is weird to say the blessing. I have the blessing of hard lessons from people who died too young, who were close to me. Um, my uncle had the traditional American idea of retirement, right? You work till you're 62 or until you're 65. You just save all your money and then you retire. So he worked his butt off. He raised three amazing kids. He had this wonderful wife she's just such a gem. And at age 62, he's getting ready to retire and he's starting to have these vision problems. And he retires December 31st. January 12th, 12 days later, I think it was, he calls me. He says, "Hey, I just got back from the neurologist. I got inoperable brain cancer." So
Jesus.
he had given up every weekend. Him and the kids went and cut firewood to save money for this, to save money for that. And just when he thought he got to the point financially that everything was going to be okay, some health event comes. And so he fought that for almost 3 years. And he told me something that was so profound. He loved to trap. So I take him out. He's not getting around very well, and I knew how much it meant to him. So I brought him up here to Montana for 2 weeks, and we just went out and Mickey Moused around it, not really doing anything. And it was so hard to watch him struggle. This vibrant, physical, energetic guy. He's so talented. All of a sudden, he needs a walking staff. He can't hardly see. Just all the complications of anyone who's ever seen brain cancer do its thing. And we're driving back to my house one day and he's pretty quiet. And then he looks over at me and says, "Hey, Randy, if I got one piece of advice for you, it's don't confuse breathing with living."
Mm.
And I'm like,
You've told me
whoa,
that before.
yeah. And that lit such a fire under me of how I was taking for granted my this life that's in front of me. And I was pissing it away. And here's this guy who had tried to build this traditional American Ozzie and Harriet life, and it's gone. I mean, he's no control over it. He passed away, I think, 3 or 4 months later. So, you have things like that, and it's as hard as those times are, there's some valuable lessons that come from that. And for me, I just said, you know what, I'm going to get on with breathing or living and not just worry about breathing. And another friend who was a CPA, he'd built a practice here in Montana and then he moved to California. And when he'd come back to Montana, he had a lot of clients still, and he'd stop into my office regularly. And he became a little bit of a mentor to me in the CPA world. And he called me one day. He's like, "Hey, you aren't going to believe this. I got lymphoma, and they don't think they can fix it." I'm like, "Ah, come on." This guy, he was a jogger. I mean, he was a picture of health. 60 years old. Well, he's dead 3 months later. And
What?
yeah, the last time we talked on the phone, he called me and he's like, "Hey, I got a bunch of favors of you." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." I had no idea it was this bad. And I could tell there was quite a bit of you know, emptiness in his just his voice, and he told me this, and this is I've paraphrased it, and it's kind of become my statement in life. I said, Jerry, you know, of all the things you've accomplished financially, you are one of the most successful CPAs I've ever met. You have a cadre of clients ranging from professional athletes to entertainers to super wealthy people. What advice do you have for somebody like me? At the time, I think I was 41, 40. Uh, and he said, you know, Randy, I know how much you love to hunt. He said, I love my kids. And excuse me, he said, he used to play a lot of softball. Uh, he said, for me, I'd probably say this in terms of softball or my sports I love. He said, but for you, I'd say you better go and do that stuff, because someday you'll be like me and you won't have the health to do it anymore, but you'll have the money. And so I've kind of paraphrased the statement I live by is hunt when you can, because you're going to run out of health before you run out of money. And I, you know, some people think that's kind of a flippant way of saying things, and I don't mean it that way. And we all have the financial realities of our life, but understand that this amazing life, this gift of breath and health that you're given, isn't to be taken for granted, because once that's gone, you don't have crap.
Yeah.
Your life is, you know, a shell of what it was. So all of those events, you know, my own personal health events of ending up with a bum liver and everything, have really been in some ways that 40 to 45-year-old period where it woke me up to realize, Randy, if you die at this CPA firm just grinding away doing tax returns, man, you're a failure, because you've got your mind so full of other things you want to do. And from that, I said, I don't want the traditional retirement. I want something that I can work and be productive my entire life. And I read a book one time and I said, you know, the average American has 50 years of productivity in your life, age 20 to 70. So when you get to 50, you still have 20 productive years in front of you. Go do something new. Go try something else. Go push yourself. Go live kind of in a new world you otherwise wouldn't have. So I don't ever see myself, David, being the person who sits on the porch and drinks a coffee every morning, or, you know, kicks back as my retirement plan. My retirement plan is to work every day at something I love until I can't breathe anymore. Mm-hmm. And then get me the hell out of here. I don't need to be taking up anyone's oxygen, you know?
Yeah. Me and one of my best friends made a deal today. He was the one with it where his cousin passed away. He said, hey, if I ever go into a coma or anything, will you just tell my wife to pull the plug? You have to promise me. He's like, I don't want to waste anybody's time. That's not how I want to live. One thing I wanted to ask you, how do you balance experiences with creating wealth? It's this weird balancing act where if you want to create a life where you have the freedom to do the things you love, mm-hmm. and making money's fun. I had somebody tell me this one time. They called me out. I have a client of mine in real estate who's very, very wealthy. And we were at breakfast, and there was this property that we were talking about him purchasing. And I said, sir, you know, with all due respect, it wasn't exactly what he wanted, and he's getting older, but I thought it worked well for his kids, the next generation, in terms of an investment opportunity. And he goes, they have plenty of money. I still want to have some fun while I'm living. So he's like, I'm like, yeah, but wouldn't this be a great investment for your kids? He goes, yeah, but I want to make money right now. Making money is fun. It's like what I do. It's, you know, and I'm like, oh, I never thought of it that way. So making money is fun, and I think we kind of all get caught up in that. But experiences seem to be, if you listen to all the advice that you just said, is basically like have experiences, because it could all be taken away from you. So how do you balance that?
Yeah. I I think every person has to balance that themselves. There's the term making money, there's the term making wealth, or creating wealth, and they are two different things. Making money is usually generating cash flow. Creating wealth is building assets usually. Uh,
Mm.
but again, you're going to hear so much of this. You should have had my wife on this podcast. She doesn't say a whole lot, but she's got so much wisdom. Uh, she one time told me once our CPA firm got up and running, our son Matthew's like 12 or 13. She said to me, she said, what would really make me feel wealthy is if we could fish 60 days a summer.
Mm.
I'm like, whoa. So we cleared the deck. We made it happen. And yeah, I could have worked at the CPA firm and made more money that summer
Mm.
or those summers. I mean, the whole summer, every summer that our son Matthew was home, we fished. He never played Little League. He didn't do anything. He wanted to fish, and so did she. And so now I look back at those experiences and those memories, and there was no amount of money I could have made at that CPA firm over those summer periods that would have been worth what we got out of it.
Mm.
So that when I say create wealth, the measurement of wealth is often a non-financial criteria. We often get lazy in our society by going to the lowest common denominator. The easiest way to track our quote unquote success is through numbers and money and asset values. Well, what's, 2 weeks of time with you and your sibling getting together after, 20 years of raising your families and maybe not spending that much time together? That's worth a hell of a lot. What's it worth that every day or every week in the summer you and your family took a 3-day weekend while everyone else was scrambling? How do you put a value on
Do
that?
you want to know how I do this, Randy? That I
Huh.
think would help a lot of young fathers out there or even mothers. I start counting like spring breaks and summers that I have left with my kids.
Hmm. Yep.
And you want to be scared shitless people? Start doing that. My daughter's
Yeah.
11. My daughter's 11. And just yesterday she was born.
Yep.
And I have, assuming she leaves when she's 18, which I'm pretty sure she will. She's pretty
Oh, yeah.
independent.
Yep.
I have 7 summers left.
Hmm.
And then I start thinking about that's not even true because as she gets into high school, she's going to have her own stuff. So it's not like I got to
Yeah.
spend her. So like in reality,
Yep.
I have like 3 or 4.
You're only cool for about 3 more years, Dave.
Yeah. And so I'm like, and then I start doing the math with my boys, like, holy crap. Like that actually really starts scaring you. And then I
Yeah.
start thinking about my dad's 70. Thank God
Hmm.
he's still happy and healthy. I'm playing golf with him today. He's going to walk the whole time. He's doing great. But I remember when my dad was my age, like it was yesterday. And
Yep.
I remember when I was the same age as my kids, and it has gone by really effing fast. So I start thinking about those things when I start getting spoiled with like, should I take off? Like today, I'm taking off at, right after this podcast. I'm going to go play golf with my dad. And I could I work for another 3 hours and burn candles at both ends? Sure. Could I make a little bit more money? Maybe. But I'm like, you know what? I've been really bad, especially the last 2 months because I have all my own businesses now. And I feel like I fall into the same trap everybody else does. It's like if you're not doing something, you feel like you're being unproductive. But the reality is like there's different types of productivity. There's like
Yep.
professional productivity, family productivity, recreational productivity. Going golfing with my dad is very special to me. And I'm going to try my best to not be distracted. I'm going to turn off my phone because I'm awful at it, just like everybody else. I'm going to be worried about like if I'm missing any calls, what texts have come in. You know what I mean? It's hard. But I
Yep.
start thinking about those things and it scares the shit out of me. It
Yeah.
does. So like now
Huh.
I'm like planning every summer out from here to like I have our next 2 summers planned out because I'm like, I'm not giving these things up.
Yeah. No, you're reaching that point in your life, David. I feel about the same time I did. The same thing is you start looking. We spend so much time looking in the rearview mirror that we don't realize that out the front windshield, the road's getting shorter and shorter. And you usually have some sort of eventual awareness
Hmm.
or whatever awakening, and you're like, holy crap, I only got, whatever. When I started this gig, my wife asked me, well, how long are you going to do this backpack elk hunting stuff? I said, until I'm 65. She's like, no, you'll do it longer than that. I'm like, no, 65 will be enough. Well, here I am, 57, and I don't want to quit in 8 years. What if someone, your favorite, whoever's listening, your favorite activity, they told you only have 8 years left?
Oh my God, it's scary as hell.
Yeah.
It's
So, my wife was right. I mean, when she asked me that, whatever, 12 years ago, she was right. I'm not quitting at 65 if I can help
well,
it.
I think
So,
a lot of entrepreneurs, but also just people in the grind of the 9 to 5 can take a lot of wisdom in your story. And here you are now. You have a successful media company from that side hustle that started 15 years ago or whatever it was.
yep.
But I would say even more importantly is you have been one of the most powerful voices in advocacy and on the conservation side. And even you do what most people dare not do, which is you get involved in politics sometimes even,
Yeah.
which I think is really cool. And I wanted to talk to you about that because
Mhm.
it's it's not like it's easy. Like you said earlier, you're not making any money doing that, and you probably lose
What?
days off your life from doing it from the stress. It's not a fun subject
Yeah.
in this industry. Right before this, Randy, I had Adam Weatherby on, and he says hello,
Uh, oh,
and
yeah. Dang it. Wish I
yeah,
would have been there. I would have told him hello. He's a great guy.
yeah, and we talked about like the Second Amendment and politics and stuff, and obviously the gun industry that he's in, super controversial, and politics can be lightning rods.
Yep.
But you have chose to be courageous and
Mhm.
go out there, and you don't do it from a divisive perspective. I think you've done a very, very good job of. You have your opinions, and you're not afraid to share them, but you do a good job in doing it in a way that's not divisive, in my opinion. I honestly don't know if you're a Republican or a Democrat, and I think that's cool.
Well,
Uh,
it's good to hear.
yeah, I mean, I have my guess, but I'll keep it to myself because it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I think you've done a good job outwardly facing of just trying to fight for what's right, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so, how did you decide? Because here you have this idyllic life. You're getting to go hunting all the time. You're out of the CPA thing. You're like, you know what I'm going to do to make my life miserable? I'm going to get into politics.
yeah. I do a lot of stupid things, David, but for you to say that about how you reflect on what we've accomplished in the last, you know, 13 or 14 years means a lot to me because I have so much respect for you and where you've been in the outdoor space and how many people you interact with. So uh, I you caught me a little off guard in how you said that. But as far as getting into politics, I always say I'm into policy.
Mm.
And sometimes policy drags you into politics. And I don't, I have zero interest in what team I'm on. It's what are my values and what policies support the values that I have. And I know other people have different values. So I don't get upset if someone else has a different perspective or a different life experience that brought them to how they see the world today. So for me, it's never been about the, oh, we're going to win or we're going to lose. I I struggle to see that, and as I watch our country in the last 10 years or so, it's like people, quite honestly, both of these parties would sell your ass and your grandma's ass down the river tomorrow for two more votes.
Absolutely.
So why in the hell are you going to take one of the most cherished things in humanity, the right to your opinion, the right to vote, the right to have free speech, and you're going to hand that off to somebody at the Republican National Committee or the Democratic National Committee? Not a chance. And so, the policy arena I get to deal with is conservation and access and public lands, hunting, shooting, stuff like that. And I'm glad you don't know what party I vote for, because nobody really knows. I don't know. Uh, I do a lot of write-in candidates, and people are like, well, you're just throwing your vote away. Well, maybe I am, but you know what? A hell of a lot of people died for the right of me to be able to vote the way I want. And I don't feel beholden to one side or the other in this choosing the lesser two evils stuff. Yeah, I'm
My
not that
wife would. My
interested
wife would
in that
love
route.
this. My wife does the same thing, and
Really?
I choose the lesser of the two evils. But she's like, no, I absolutely will not do that. I refuse. And God bless
Yeah.
her. She is adamant. She reads every single. Yesterday we got two or three things from like local politics, like brochures or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just throw them right in recycling. I don't even read them half the time. She's like, no, 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 don't throw that away. I read every single one of those because I really, and that's the right way. I'm not saying that the way I do it. The way I do it is lazy, and it's not the right way to do it. Which my wife is much better at it, but I think that's the noble way to approach it. Because you're right. The reality is like these people are not. A lot of these people are not really interested in what you think or feel. What they're interested is gaining more power.
Yeah. And the other part is, David, my grandmother, I had three grandmothers growing up who were such powerful figures in my life. And one of them coached me, Randy, you should always try to be uncomfortable. Find people, find ideas that make you uncomfortable. So I go out and seek those places of discomfort. And it, it is uncomfortable at times. You put yourself in a group of people, or you try to engage in a conversation that is completely foreign to your life experiences. And you go there and you're like, man, I could say the dumbest thing, or I feel such a, a, a planet out of orbit where everyone else knows what their orbit is. But I feel like I learned so much from that. And in the place of policy and politics, it allows me, I hope, to view that for the most part, the average American has certain values that they want expressed. And that's based on their life experiences. It doesn't make them a good person. It doesn't make them those damn libs or those damn, Trumpers or whatever the hell it is. It's like,
Right.
when you start doing that, when you start hanging tags and labels on people, you're taking some of the best people in the world, American neighbors, and you're saying, I don't like you, or I'm going to categorize you just to satisfy my own comforts.
Right.
And that's so freaking lazy. And when you jump in and say, I'm going to be on the left team or the right team, you're just this again. This is kind of a lecture. I don't mean it to be that way, but
Oh,
I
that's
feel
okay.
you're taking your own values and you're saying, well, I'm going to subordinate my values to be on the quote unquote winning team.
I totally agree, and I was actually having a conversation with a potential sponsor of this show yesterday, and I started the conversation off. I'm going to talk to whoever I want to. I'm going to say whatever I want to, and I'm not ever purposefully trying to hurt anybody's feelings or, what I'm trying to do is I value freedom of speech more over everything and creative freedom over everything, even a check. So if that meets your standard, then great. If not, this conversation it doesn't need to go any further. And
Yeah.
because I plan on having on the show people that I absolutely 100% disagree with politically, but
Mhm.
I'm really fascinated with their life. Like I'm thinking of a couple in my mind right now that I'm really looking forward to talking to them. I don't want to talk to them about politics necessarily. I'm not against it, but I want to talk. Their life fascinates me. Now, some people may look at those episodes. How could Brinker ever have and that person's anti NRA or whatever it might be,
Mhm.
and that may or may not be true. That was a random example,
Mhm.
but I'm just not going to do that because I don't think that that's healthy. I don't think these silos are healthy. I don't think leaving your state because it's a blue state or a red state is healthy. I
That's
think it's all stupid, and I think a lot of people are going to regret it. I
hmm
live in one of the most blue states in the country. I am highly conservative in most of my points of views,
Yep, me too.
but I refuse to leave here because that's I don't think that that's the way to solve the problem. I don't think
No.
less engagement is the way to solve the problem. I think more engagement is the way to solve the problem, and
Yep.
trying to find ways to meet in the middle and find common ground, because if we can't do that, then we're all
Yeah,
done
we're
with,
going
right?
down together. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, everybody's going
we're
down. I mean, it's like hopefully we can kind of find common ground with Putin. I mean, it's like the highest
yeah.
level example, right?
Yeah,
Like he's a total scumbag, obviously. But
yeah.
what are you going to do? You're just going to keep isolating him until he pushes the red button, or
Yep.
are you going to? I don't. I'm not going to pretend to know the answers, but
No, I
the point is I think you have to approach it like you do. I think that that's the right way to do it.
I I you brought up a topic, Putin, and it always causes me to think about how our life experiences bring us to where we are in our views today. And so my great grandfather moved from Finland in 1913 and came to northern Minnesota because at the time the Russians were embarking on the Russification of Finland. And he didn't want to get conscripted in the Russian army, so he moves to northern Minnesota. A lot of other Scandinavians move there. And so, any of your listeners who grew up in a family like I did with a very strong heritage of Finn cultures and Finn history will know exactly what I'm talking about. But at about 10 years old, my grandmother, who had learned from her father why he had to come to the United States, she sits me down and she's like, "Look, Randy, you're the oldest grandson, and now it's time for you to understand." And Russia attacked the Finns in 1939 and took the Karelian Peninsula. There's been this history of Russian interference, and so I grew up with. It's probably the only time I really use the term hatred for what Russia represents. The Union of Soviet Socialistic Republics is what it was when my grandma was giving me this lecture. And so that's tainted my view of Russia, Russian culture, Russian people all my life. Uh, and there comes times in your life then where you meet some people from Russia, and it's like, whoa, wait a second. These are just normal people. These are
Mhm.
people wanting a life like I have. So here's my life experience of what I've been told, what I've been taught. A lot of it is relevant, but it's so easy to vilify some other person that we don't understand, where we've never seen their life or we've never walked in their shoes. And don't anyone get confused. I still distrust and hate all that Russia stands for, but their people I have a huge amount of empathy for, which
Mhm.
some might say is a contradiction. But
No, I don't think so. I mean,
the point of that is we could all look back at things in our life that form our opinion today, and that doesn't mean that has to be our opinion forever. When you incur life events where you get to see real people, you get to talk to people who you've had a different opinion of, just because it was easy to say, oh, those Russians. Well, when you get to talk to them, as individuals or people who've come to the US from Russia, you realize, they're just humans. They're just like me. They
well,
want to raise their
we have a
family.
weird habit of wanting to hang like box things or
Mhm.
compartmentalize things because it makes it easier on us.
Oh, that's the lazy way to do it. And
Yeah,
my point of all that is I was being lazy.
yeah.
I was influenced by some historical events in my family history that caused me to take a very narrow view that had a lot of justification to it. But in the process, I got lazy and I put everybody in the same box. And so it's times like that where you have the realizations that hopefully as adults we say, maybe it's not the way I always thought it was. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, or like, God, what was it this morning? I was thinking about my opinions on something. Maybe I had a dream about it, but there was some thing that I have very strong opinions about. And in my dream, someone's like, "Have you ever like tried to just re-examine your opinions and think about if they were right or wrong?" And the rest of the dream was me like examining these two things and like realizing they weren't all the way right. But I think it's hard to do because we're all stubborn and we all think we're right, me included. But and it actually it really hurts the ego to admit you're
mhm,
wrong. I hate doing
yeah,
that, but it's actually also pretty liberating
mhm,
when it happens and you can just get comfortable with it. But one of my goals with this podcast, I don't want to intentionally have. I don't like debating people really. I just, but I am opening to. I'm not gonna not talk to somebody because they're red or blue or
right.
whatever. Like I want to talk to people that I'm interested in learning about their lives and there's wisdom that I can take from their lives because that's one of my goals with this podcast. I don't need this. I don't need to do this. I have plenty of stuff to do, Randy.
Mhm,
But I find a lot of real, true human value out of talking to people like you or whoever else and taking wisdoms. It's almost like a cheat code. Like we have the opportunity. Seriously, it's
yeah.
like you can talk to people that are way smarter than you and are successful and like have all this wisdom to share that someday, unless they write a book, is going to be gone.
Mhm.
And you can share in that and learn from it and maybe improve your life. God, I think that's awesome. But if you're going to do that, you can't just do it from people that you've compartmentalized into this group of people that you 100% agree with because it's just it's kind of I don't know, what is it, preaching to the choir type stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah. As another grandma would say, she's a very devout Methodist. If you're going to do any missionary work, you got to go to the back alleys and the bars, not in the church. Missionary work doesn't happen in church.
That's right. I was
Uh,
talking to somebody, Randy, and I was going to ask you if you agree with this. I think from a conservation perspective and a hunting, which you and I care about deeply, like where I am out in Oregon, the decisions aren't made where I live in the town of 1,000 people. The decisions are made in Portland
yep,
and Eugene and Salem, and period, end of story. That's it. And the
yep,
people that live there are making decisions on whether we can hunt cougars with dogs and bears and whatever other future things come up.
yep.
So you and I can have a conversation and it's all hunky dory and we're like high fiving and drinking a beer, and it's great. But what really matters is like who's having a conversation with them,
Yeah,
and trying to figure out a way to, I don't know, through education or whatever, to give us at least a fighting chance.
yeah. It's called showing up. I've spent 2 weeks in Oregon this year, uh, doing shows and talking to, I'd say, well over 1,000 different people over the course of that. And uh, they ask me kind of the same thing. Oh, I'm moving to Montana or Idaho. I'm tired of the politics here. And I'm like, well, that's kind of waving the surrender flag. Are
Right.
you going to fight for what you believe in? Are you going to
Right.
show up? If I would say in the outdoor space that you and I have spent a lot of time in, we have a tendency to think that complaining is solving the problem.
Mm.
And along comes platforms like Facebook and Instagram. And boy, that really lets us complain loud there. Guess what? It's like I'm going to go on Facebook so I can live in my alternate reality.
Mm-hmm.
The real reality is what's going on in the state legislature or down at the county commission meeting or in Congress or wherever. And if you don't show up, you know, that's like saying, well, I'm going to watch the Super Bowl and try to score a touchdown from my living room. No, you got to be on the field.
Yeah.
The people who are going to determine the outcome are the people on the field, not the
Mm-hmm.
people in the bleachers, not the people watching on TV. So if it's that important to us, why the hell aren't we showing up? And I get that we got families, we got businesses, and the other sides know that. They hire people. They are experts at doing this. But we spend so much time fighting and arguing with each other about whether you can use a mechanical broadhead or not use a mechanical broadhead. Can you have a lighted knock on your arrow or can't you? We spend so much time and energy on that stuff that we are getting our asses handed to us. And our response is, well, I'll just go on Facebook. Well, they threw me off, so I'll go on Rumble. Well, that's not working, so I'm going to go down to the bar and bitch and moan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little overheated here, but you know,
No,
what some
it's well founded. It's well founded,
and
and I think
so
most of us, with the exclusion of you, are totally guilty of it. I
I am too, David. I mean,
uh,
I don't want to make it sound like I've got it all figured out. I surely don't. There's times where I'm like, why the hell did I not go up to Helena and testify on that? Or why did I not call this person? I know this person who knows the governor, or this person who knows my congressman, or whatever. Why didn't I use my platform for this? I've got those same things on.
have you heard of that? Have you heard of the new organization Howl?
Yeah, I've heard of them. I've been looking into them. I'm not that, they just showed up on the scene at least. Well, they showed up on my radar about a month ago.
Yeah. So
But I'll be
I'm having him on the podcast.
cool.
Um, I don't know much about it. It's very surface level education, but one of the things it looks like he did was made it very easy for people to voice themselves through a push of a button.
Yep.
That shows right up in their legislators' inbox or whatever, which I think is cool. So as we move into the future, maybe there will be, because I know we're all lazy. We don't want to drive to Helena or
Right.
Salem or wherever you live. Like, it's a pain in the ass. Plus, who wants to sit in one of those stuffy
hmm
piece of shit rooms with a bunch of people that are so boring? You want to fall asleep, and you feel like they're not going to listen to you in the first place.
Right.
And do that. I mean, who has time for that? Well, the
hmm
answer is not a lot of us, but also we should. I am so guilty of this, Randy.
Yeah.
I need to proact. That's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today, or in over the course of the near future. I want to figure out how I can become more involved, especially in Oregon, because I grew up here, and I think it's so effed up. So many things.
hmm
I want to pick my battles, but I think
Yep.
what you giving your wisdom helps a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, if you ever get a chance, read the book, 6 Degrees of Separation. You know somebody who knows your governor. You know somebody who knows your U.S. senator. And are we willing to leverage and exercise our relationships?
Mm.
Because just like business, just like life, policy and politics is about relationships. So who do we know?
Human influence.
Yeah. And, you don't need to be the largest donor to somebody, but if you and 10 of your buddies get together and you get a hold of your U.S. senator and say, we're kind of pissed about this, or hey, there's a huge opportunity. We'd like your support for this. You get 10 influential people in your community. That chief of staff of that U.S. senator is probably going to make a point to come and meet with you.
Mm.
And that chief of staff, he or she is going to go back to your senator and say, hey, we this is on the radar now. We better start paying attention.
Yeah, we better think about this.
And it's even easier at your state level. And it's way easier at your county or city level because you probably know people on your city commission or on your county commission or whatever. So we hate that stuff. We don't want to be a part of it. But by not taking it into our own hands, we're handing it off to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And are they going to care about it as much as we do?
What is the biggest battle that we have ahead of us right now?
Oh man. I external or internal?
External.
External. Um, boy, I think it's habitat issues. It's the quality of the landscape and the water. Where, you know, I'm blessed that I remember the fact that a town the size of Bozeman, our valley here might be 80,000 people. Back in 1975, just when we were converting over to unleaded gasoline. Bozeman, a town this size, would have had such bad smog and air pollution issues, you wouldn't have been able to believe it. And here comes the Clean Air Act. Here comes the EPA. And now we take for granted clean air. In my lifetime, the Cuyahoga River in Ohio started on fire. And then along comes the Clean Water Act. So many great things have happened that we start to take this stuff for granted. So we end up with a really bad case of apathy.
Is that because it so quickly, especially with stuff like that, so quickly goes to, that's just the greenies, you know, the tree hugging sons of bitches.
Right.
I mean, I know that just naturally when you say the Clean Air Act, it automatically sets alarms off in my conservative rural Oregon mind.
Right.
That someone probably had to work with, you know, I don't know a lot about that act, unfortunately. I feel ignorant, but do you see what I'm saying? Do you think that that's the problem? Like you're saying habitat issues, like what? Like you're talking about clean water, what else?
Clean air, productive lands. Yeah. I mean, I'll use an example. There's a bill that just got introduced into Congress this week that wants to, it's a little background. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service goes and pays a lot of farmers in the Midwest to not drain wetland areas and convert them to croplands because they're marginal areas and they're high wildlife values. They actually bought perpetual lifetime, just forever easements on those small wetland areas. Well, now there's a bill that says we want to let those people out of this, even though we paid them all this money to retire those lands forever.
Is this and sorry for my ignorance, is this CRP? Is that the ground you're talking?
No, it's similar to that. It's called the North American Wetlands Conservation Act, NACWA. Okay. Or not. That's the program that brought in a lot of these wetland easements. Well, along comes a group of politicians who are like, no, we want to get rid of that. We want these landowners to be able to get out of all that, drain these wetlands, and put the plow to it. Well, you know what that means for waterfowl, for upland birds, for deer, for clean water? Huge. And so because we pick sides right away, it's like, well, that bill was sponsored by my side, so I'm not going to speak out against it.
Right.
I can go on. That's just one that came up this week. That's why it entered my mind. It just on and on and on. And, let's take where I live here in Bozeman, Montana. Everybody wants to argue and fight about wolves in Yellowstone National Park. There's too many. Oh, they harvested, they shot too many, they whatever. Makes headlines of every national media outlet. Nobody seems to be giving a damn that if we continue to subdivide all those migration routes, if we put more roads and more hotels and more Airbnbs and more golf courses in those migration routes, we're not going to have any damn elk and we're not going to have any damn wolves to argue about. But everybody's like, oh, let's fight. Let's boy those sons of bitches over there, on that other side. It's like, guess what, folks? When we have a country that's racing towards 400 million people and a planet that is soon to be 8 billion people, the landscape can only provide so much. And who pays the price when we put pressure on that landscape? It's the wild things that don't have a voice, that don't get to vote. So in the hunting space, we are living in the good old days. As much as people are going to say, you're full of crap, Newberg.
Oh, it's 100%
true. We have this amazing model of how we conserve spaces and places and things. And we're about ready to flush it down the shitter because we want to fight about little things.
Lighted Knox, Randy, that's way more important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's way more important, right?
Yeah, compound versus Tradbo. Let's go. Let's argue about that.
Yeah, and so I look at that, and it plays right into the hands of what this binary political system hopes for. Either side is only as successful as you let them be. if you say, I'm going to jump into that game, and the first thing I'm going to do when I see something, read something, Randy talks about the Clean Water Act, I'm instantly going to say, that crazy hippie greenie, you know, they probably have no idea that I own more firearms than any
Right.
guest that you might have on this
Yeah.
podcast. They have no idea that because my grandfather had to leave Finland and he strongly felt that he had to because they weren't armed well enough, and he
Mm.
moved to America, he bought firearms like they were going out of style. And he passed on to my grandmother that he'd never be peaceably disarmed. And I'm standing right here as a witness, David. I will never be peaceably disarmed. So, what a contradiction, right? I will never give up my firearms. You
I
will
think
have to physically
I
take them from
I
me.
think this speaks a lot to one of the things I wanted to bring up to you today that I've always admired about you, Randy, is you intelligently approach things. I think this is why you're so good at researching areas and tag draws, and like you're a very data driven person. And obviously you have emotions, but I think a lot of us are driven by more emotion than data. Now, believe me, I am accountants like you usually do not like me because I am a gut guy. I live by my gut. I'm not always data driven. It's something I got to work on. But what I see with you is in this scenario too, is you're like, okay, yes, I have all these conservative leanings. I'm a gun owner, Second Amendment, rah rah. But I also know that if we drain all these wetlands in the Midwest, that's fucked. And it's really bad for everything I love. And it may be a greenie issue, but you know what? It's not right. So I have the courage to stand up for it. That's really admirable. Also very hard to pull off because inevitably, if you live your life like that, you're going to lose some people.
Yeah. I guess I
Wolves are
appreciate that
another
you say
lightning rod issue, obviously.
yeah. I appreciate that you say it's admirable and it's hard, but I struggle to see it as hard.
Mm.
I, 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 oh, I don't care if somebody's mad at me
Well, I
because
think it's
I
hard
am a,
because you and I'm not making excuses for anybody because it's literally not hard, but figuratively it's hard because most people feel like they live within the borders that their sphere of influence puts around them. Meaning, if they have a 9 to 5 job in a logging company or a construction company or whatever, it's heavily conservative. Let's say
yep.
if they say,
Mhm.
I screw this act that just came into Congress, and their buddies are like, what the fuck are you talking about? You
Yep.
hippie, get out of
Yep.
here, dude. What are you, like Kate
Uh,
Brown, liberal? Uh,
mhm.
People fear that stuff because it hurts. It sucks.
Yeah.
Actually stand up for what's right isn't always easy. In fact, most of the time it's hard. It's much
Yeah.
easier if it's an issue that your buddies agree with, is all I'm saying. That's what's
No,
hard.
yeah. I get that, but if someone says, "Oh, hippie, blah blah blah, Kate Brown lover, whatever," to me, that's them waving the surrender flag that they don't have a real counter argument
Mm.
or any position. It's to me, I'm like, well, that response just shows that the perspective that kind of pushed them to that point of discomfort probably has got a lot of validity because they can't counter it with anything other than, oh, you libtard or you Trumper or and we
Yeah.
see it on all sides.
Oh,
I mean, right?
The Trumper one's the
Yeah,
worst. Like, oh,
yeah,
it's just Russian
yeah,
propaganda, you Trump fanatic.
yep, yeah.
It's like,
It's like,
whoa. Even
yeah,
even today, I just was listening to Ben Shapiro before I got on this, and he said the New York Times just admitted that the Hunter Biden laptop story was actually real, but it was in like line 24 of the story, and he was
yeah,
talking about like when that all came about. The left's like, no, that's Russian difference. It's racist. or they pull all these cards out of their deck: racist, Russian disinformation, anti-gay, or whatever it is. It's much easier to do that from both sides. It happens on both sides for sure. And like I said, I tend to be a lot more conservative, but I'm kind of sick of it. Not sick of conservatives. I'm sick of the laziness and the arguments. Like, I actually am trying to, in my older age, now that I have the courage to not want to please everybody, to actually seek truth. And sometimes it's not what I thought was truth.
No, so if you saw my laptop here and what my bookmarks are, David, about, I'd say 10 years ago, I realized that the news and the information I was forming my opinions on was worth what I was paying for it. And I was getting all free news, right? And then along comes Facebook, and it's supposedly a source of information. Well, that's, but so I subscribe to the Wall Street Journal. Everyone's like, well, that's so right wing. Yep. I pay to subscribe to the New York Times. Oh, a bunch of lefties. Yep. I want both sides of it. And I'm willing to pay for that. And I don't just want national stories. I want what's going on in my backyard.
Yeah.
So my wife has a subscription to the Bozeman Daily Chronicle, because one of the trends that I think has happened in America to our detriment is through technology and through the loss of local media sources. All of our politics has become nationalized. In other words, your elections in Oregon, the same as they are here in Bozeman, Montana. Check out how many TV ads or how many mailers you get that talk about Chuck and Nancy on one side and talk about, the return of the Trumpers on the other side.
Right.
They don't talk about, here in Oregon, we got issues related to forest policy, or we got issues related to homeless. And in Montana, we got issues related to ag trade, and we got issues related to, you name it. Nope. It's Chuck and Nancy against Donald and Don Jr. It's really
that's what we got.
That has almost zero impact to the fact none of those people had any say in the fact that a huge subdivision just got approved that's going to wipe out, 120 white-tailed deer permanently.
Right.
But that's where we go. So I have had to force myself to go and subscribe to independent sources. Now, there's national sources. There's a bunch of independent online sources that are regional to the Rocky Mountains here that I subscribe, and I so often catch myself writing a letter to the editor, you dumbasses, how dare you say that?
Yeah.
And then anytime I have the tendency to start crafting a rebuttal to something, I'm like, okay, think about this. Are you just offended because your point of view has been tweaked a little bit and you don't like being uncomfortable today? So I worry that we are relying on free news, and anyone can give you free news. It's not news. It's not information. It really, if it's free, the odds are it's propaganda on both sides.
Yeah.
And so
the whole propaganda thing, I guess I've just come to realize, this is so dumb. I'm such an idiot sometimes. I've just really, really recently, now that I'm paying more attention to how Russia plays the game, and even Ukraine in a lot of senses, there's so much disinformation and propaganda going around. You open your eyes up, you're like, dude, you actually do really. I'm not saying like censoring and stuff like that. I'm saying you just got to be very aware that propaganda, by nature of the multiplication through social media and digital assets that we have now, is so bad. It's always been around. Like, it's not like it's new, but it's just we consume it nonstop, and even on like fake accounts on Instagram and TikTok or whatever else. It's crazy. So trying to sift through that actually takes effort. It actually takes conscious effort to be like, no, I'm going to get my news from this independent YouTube channel. I'm gonna real quick. I'm gonna hit Fox News, CNN, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and kind of find somewhere in the middle, and that might be a halfway picture of reality.
I know that sounds weird, David, but I look at how much effort and quality of work is being done to produce the story or the news line, knowing that whatever publisher and editor gets final say, it's going to be slanted one way or the other.
Right.
But at least some of these real reputable sources do a hell of a lot of work compared to the copy and paste, make it up, pull it out of context kind of stuff you get on the internet.
Right.
You know, that for free. So I know that's a huge tangent, but I view that not just my job as trying to be a leader in some of the policy areas of the outdoor space, but just my responsibility as being an informed citizen. I need to invest in my knowledge and my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't afford $30 a month, then I shouldn't be in this leadership position.
Well, if you can't afford $30 a month, you certainly shouldn't be building a hunting media company.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy when people say, I don't watch the news anymore. It just drives me crazy. It's like, well, that's pretty lame.
Yeah.
And believe me, it drives me crazy too. But I make a really conscious effort. I want to know. I want to be informed. Therefore, because there will come a time that we all have to kind of stand up for what we believe in. Hey, I want to switch gears a little bit, Randy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'm gonna throw a question at you out of nowhere.
Uh-oh.
What's the top 3 things that you would tell a new hunter that wants to get into what they want to do, what Randy Newberg does?
Have a good day job.
That's one.
Yeah. Don't give yourself a plan B. And I would say my point 2 there has been my motto in everything in life, from marriage to business to this to elk hunting. Don't give yourself a plan B, because if you have a plan B, you'll quit along the way. So the third one, make it fun. Elk hunting is supposed to be fun more than it is anything. So
I think I want to touch on that, because I want to work on this with you. We're going to do it. You probably already do this. I want someone to come up with an elk hunting class that talks about how to kill an average bull. I think there's so much stuff out there that tells that it's kind of this gaslighting that makes people think they're going to kill 350s.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell people straight up, here is how to kill a 4x5. Period. Because the reality is most people, that is what they're going to kill if they kill something. So why don't we just be honest with them? Am I off on that one?
No, not at all. I think that's definitely worthwhile. Here at our office, we call it the Raghorn Express. Raghorn being the elk term for a 2.5-year-old bull that's 4x4, 4x5.
Yeah,
we shoot a lot of those around this office, and man, we love eating them. But don't get me wrong, if the Raghorn's standing there and there's a great big one standing there, there are the great big ones in more trouble than the Raghorn.
Do you ever listen to Jordan Peterson?
No. Okay. I haven't. And that's nothing against Jordan. It's just I don't have time to listen to any podcasts.
Yeah.
Hardly even my own.
I get it. Oh, why would you? I never want to listen to my podcast. If you ever catch me listening to my own podcast, slap me. One of the things he says, he's an intellectual, but he was a clinical psychologist for years. And one of the things he always used to tell his patients was aim small. Don't aim big, aim small. And some people say, well, that's kind of bad advice, because then you're just telling people don't set huge goals. He's like, no, that's not what I'm telling them.
Right.
What I'm telling you can have both. But if you're a new hunter and you get your Eastman's magazine and you jump on all these forums and you look at all these, you're thinking, okay, I have friends like this. This is why I can describe it in perfection. They're like, they'll call me and be like, hey, I'm coming elk hunting. I have 5 days. I'm going to Colorado. Do you think it's realistic for me to wait for a 340 bull? And I'm like,
yeah, let me put the phone down here. I got to laugh out loud.
Well, I just wish somebody would tell them, like, okay, here's the deal. You're probably going to come out west and work your ass off for multiple years before you kill anything, unless you're on like a really good guided hunt. If you're on public land and you're just learning, it's just like anything else. You're going to suck at it just like everybody else did at first. And realistically, when you finally do kill one, it's going to be like a 3x2. Now, I'm not saying that there's not beginners that kill big stuff. And I'm not even saying you shouldn't try to, because I think killing a more mature animal is a noble thing to do. And also, it's a great challenge.
Right.
What I'm saying is, if you actually want to be realistic with yourself, and by the way, I still shoot raghorns and I get just as excited today as I did when I was 12 years old. So it's not like it's some like drop down in achievement. It's still cool. But sometimes I feel like, Randy, in our industry, we make everybody feel like my analogy is in the music industry is if somebody's like, yeah, Brinker, when you come down and record, you're for sure going to record a number one, man. I just know it. You got a number one song on the radio. And it's like, no, actually, that's not the case. You're going to come down there, you're going to record, you're going to enjoy it. Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. And that's just the way it is. Yep. And so anyways, I wanted to mention that to you because I think with the Raghorn Express, I like that. Do you own that domain?
No, I don't.
You should buy that domain, Randy.
There you go. Yeah, well, this last season I in the same year, after 30 years of trying for moose, I drew a moose tag and I drew a mountain goat tag, and had them both in the same season in the same unit with overlapping dates. So we do these videos called Lessons Learned, and most people are hoping that it's some tip or some tactic or strategy that'll help them be more successful. This was all about the mindset of approaching these type of hunts to have fun. Because you have all the pressure from your friends. Oh, you should end up with this animal. Yeah. Or, if you don't at least this, man, you didn't do that tag any justice. And I'll be honest, the first couple, we call glory tags. So at the beginning, we play the Bruce Springsteen song "Glory Days," but it's glory tags. I succumbed to that pressure, and what should have been some of the most enjoyable experiences of my life ended up being pressure, almost drudgery towards the end. So I thought, okay, Randy, you're pretty gray. You got a lot of wrinkles now. You should be given the benefit of that experience to some of these other people. So it's not really how to shoot a small elk, but it's how to have fun and hunt for your own reasons.
I guess that's the sentiment. That's the sentiment I was going for. Is exactly what you just said. Because ultimately, and I actually had that same experience. The best private property I've ever gotten to hunt in my life was a ranch that I can't even begin to. If I started telling people on this podcast how many elk I heard bugle in 5 days, they wouldn't even believe me anyway, so I'm not going to try. I did try once, but I'm probably going to delete it because people will be like, oh yeah, right, Brinker said this, and it's true. But the most amazing elk experience I've ever had were during that week. Also, the worst hunt I've ever had in my life was that week because I put too much pressure on myself, and it was an awful, awful, awful dark place. It was total rock bottom in terms of hunting for me. I've had way better experiences on overhunted public land where I didn't have these grandiose expectations, not just for myself, but from if you go on that ranch, if you shoot anything less than a 365, I wouldn't even pull an arrow out unless it's three, but you don't care about all that shit, but it gets in your head. Yeah. And then pretty soon you're having an awful time as opposed to, I don't know if you remember this, Randy, if several years ago, you gave me a hot tip on a spot on public land. And I went up there, hunted to hell, but I went in there 3 miles by myself in the snow, ended up in a wilderness area, or just getting onto wilderness area, and I shot a bull by myself. It was like a little tiny 5-point, and I've shot lots of elk in my life. That was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had in the woods because of how much it sucked and how cold it was and how it was dangerous. But it was amazing because I had no I actually didn't even think I was going to see anything. And I could name 20 experiences like that are way more special to me than that experience that I had on that ranch.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the same thing in a lot of our parts of our life, David, is do what it is for your purposes, not what someone else's expectation is for you. And I don't care if that's how you view the world, how you decide to go about what you want out of hunting, what you want out of your family, what do you want out of your business. Live for you, love for you, hunt for you, and hell with the rest of them.
Yeah. That's a great advice. Randy, how can people tune into you got, like, I was on your website this morning. It's like 7 different podcasts, video series. Like, if I was going to tell somebody where to go, I mean, not that they already everybody knows how to find you, but if there is somebody listening to this that hasn't followed you yet, you got some amazing stuff to look into, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to your shameless plug.
Yeah, well, we have all those kind of the hub where you can find them is at randynewberg.com. But the ones that I think get the most traction, we have a big YouTube channel, Randy Newberg Hunter. I do a podcast called Hunt Talk Radio. I do another podcast with Corey Jacobson called Elk Talk. And then we've got, the normal social media stuff that I can't wait till I can blow them up and give Mark Zuckerberg a wedgie. But you can find me in all those places. And then we just started a subscription platform called Fresh Tracks Plus, and the amount of support we've got for that, David, is just, it blows
What platform
me away.
are you using for that?
Vimeo. And you go to freshtracks.tv, and there's a monthly subscription and an annual subscription.
Is the podcast on there too, or is it just the videos?
Just the videos and a lot of videos. Then we do some live events where, it's just me and 50 people sitting around having an hour conversation about something, kind of like you and I are today. But one of the things that drove me to that is just, again, this is where people are like, I never know where he's going to be on the map of politics or, of the perceived view. I absolutely, with 100% of my flesh, do not like the fact that my audience has to become part of big tech's ad-based models of building profiles around them and their behavior just so that person can watch my content. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's bad enough that you get annoyed by all these ads, but the way that they know what ad to serve you is they're following you around the internet. And then they serve you an ad on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. And that just, so my dislike of that is one of the biggest reasons why I went to a subscription-based platform. Most people who think like I do say, I'd rather pay you a small fee every month or once a year and know that I don't have to worry about those jokers. So
they go to Vimeo /Fresh Tracks.
No, they just go to the Vimeo is the back end. The front end.
Gotcha.
Just go to freshtracks.tv.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, congratulations on all your success. I think you're an inspirational story for all of us that are looking to live a life like Randy Newberg.
David, I think everybody wishes they lived a life like David Brinker.
No, to each side of me right now, I have messes from kids, dogs. Like I know I have a clean looking studio, but I gotta, I have all the same problems that we all have. So we're all looking for wisdom. But I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Stay well.
And let's do this again, buddy.
Anytime.
Well, thanks for tuning into the Altitude Show today. Make sure to get out and support those that support this show. GoHunt.com, PeaksEquipment.com. Also, you can support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe there and leave a 5-star review. Nothing less than 5 stars. We'll see you next week with a new guest. Have a great day, everyone.